Hey, how's it going everyone, and welcome to the channel. Now, today is going to be part 2 of my series giving my thoughts on Disney's sequel trilogy. Now, in the last video, I gave my thoughts on Episode 7, The Force Awakens. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend you watching it first, as I reference a lot of things I said in that video in this one. Okay, so, obviously this means that today I will be giving my thoughts, good and bad, about Episode 8, The Last Jedi. My final thing is get ready for the ride because I have a lot to say about this movie. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this movie. Okay, so here we are at the positives in this movie. Now, my first positive is going to once again be Kylo Ren. If you watched my last video, you know that I thought Kylo was the best thing in The Force Awakens, and let me just say that it continues over to this movie. I find his storyline the only one that actually goes in a decently reasonable way based on where he was at the end of the last movie. I think watching him struggle with attempting to let go of his past so he can fully give into the dark side was pretty enjoyable to watch, even though I thought that happened when he killed Han in the last movie. But yeah, I definitely think he was a bright spot in this movie. My final word on Kylo is that someone needs to track down Adam Driver and make sure that this man is okay, because I know he has back problems from carrying this entire trilogy on his back. Okay, so my next positive about this movie is one that I'm kinda iffy about, and that is Poe. Now, I didn't mention Poe in my Force Awakens review because I am overall just meh on his character. And even in this movie, I'm pretty meh on him. However, I will always appreciate it when someone is willing to put it all on the line in an attempt to save others. He did this when he had to plan and orchestrate a mutiny in order to take control of the ship to save all those on board. Now, it ended up being thrown out the window later on, but I will discuss that later in the video. Now, my last positive is the visuals. I can talk all I want about the characters and the story, but I can't take away that this movie was shot pretty well, so good cinematography, I guess. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to find positives. So let's just go ahead and move on to the negatives. Okay, so here we are with the negatives in this movie. Now, in my opinion, there are actually a lot of negatives about this movie, so I will only be discussing those that I deem absolute worst of the worst. So, my first negative is actually going to have to be Finn. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. In my Force Awakens review, I said that I thought Finn was among the main positives of that movie, and it's a shame what has become of him in this movie. The Force Awakens set up very interesting and entertaining storyline possibilities for Finn, and unfortunately, this movie just tosses all of that out of the window. Instead of exploring the cool things set up in the last movie, The Last Jedi sidelines Finn with Rose for the entire movie. He literally does nothing in this movie that impacts the main story, and I find that makes me very upset actually. He went from having the potential to be among the most interesting Star Wars characters, to one that I had no real care for in this movie. It's just a shame. Now, moving on to the next negative, which is going to be Finn's partner in this movie, Rose. I honestly don't know what to say about her character. She was bland, useless, completely unnecessary, and honestly cringeworthy. Like, what were they thinking? We already had enough main characters going into this movie. We didn't need another one shoehorned in. She has one of the dumbest and most cringe moments ever when she saves Finn. Like, he was about to sacrifice his life in order to save the entire Resistance, which would have given him a very honorable and meaningful death, and one that I would have been extremely okay with. But no, here she came flying in to save him on some "we don't trade lives, we win with love" crap, or whatever it was she said. It was just simply so stupid and cringe. Now, a lot of people consider her to be the worst Star Wars character ever, but I'm here to tell you that she isn't. In the words of Yoda, there is another. But before we get to that, I want to talk about my next negative, and that is Finn and Rose's entire storyline in this movie. The whole casino plotline literally amounts to nothing. They don't learn anything of importance to the main story. They don't accomplish the mission they set out to do. Like, they would have ended up in the same exact place at the end of this movie had they just stayed on the ship with Poe. It was just absolutely ridiculous and useless, but you know what? Let's move on to the next negative. Now, I mentioned just a second ago that Rose wasn't the worst Star Wars character, and she isn't, because that title belongs to Miss Purple Hair herself, Holdo. What a terrible character. I'm telling you guys, Holdo and Rose put together make Jar Jar Binks look as interesting and complex as Darth Vader. That's how bad they are, and Holdo is the worst of the two of them. From the beginning, she acted like this stuck-up, "you better listen to me because I'm better than you" character, and that is one that just doesn't resonate with people. Like, are there people out there who actually like this character? Nothing she does in this movie makes any sense whatsoever. To go along with this, I'm going to introduce my next negative, which is the entire Holdo Poe storyline. To break it down, the bridge is blown up and Leia survives, but is in a coma. Just a quick sidebar, Leia flying through space is likely the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in a movie. But back to what I was saying. So, Leia's in a coma, which means Holdo takes control of the Resistance. Now, the Resistance is currently on the run from the First Order, who is going to kill them if caught. So like a normal person would, Poe asks what the plan to survive is, and Holdo tells him and the whole Resistance rejoices. Oh wait, that isn't what happened? Oh, that's right, she doesn't tell them her plan. In fact, she acts like she doesn't have one at all. Like, there are lives on the line here, lady. These people need to be comforted and shown that they are going to be alright, but no. So Poe, thinking that she doesn't have a plan at all, decides to do all he can to take over so he can try his best to save the people on the ship. And he succeeds in this, but Leia walks in and stuns Poe and lets him know that he's so stupid because Holdo actually had a plan the entire time. So this whole storyline could have been avoided if she had behaved like a normal person and just told people that she had a plan. This is the most ridiculous and pointless plotline I've ever seen in my 20 years of watching movies. Now, my next negative is the so-called Holdo maneuver. This made absolutely no sense. If this was possible, they would have been doing this for years by having droids pilot ships at light speed to destroy other ships. This just shows a complete lack of understanding of the Star Wars universe and a disregard for the plot holes that this opens up. Now, on to my second to last negative, and that is Rey. As I said in the last review, I don't like Rey as a character. I find her dull, boring, and just not relatable as she has no flaws which leave no room for any real character growth. And that carries over into this movie as well. She in no way grows whatsoever as a character in this movie. Her powers grow, yes, but her character at its core in no way advances or changes. So yeah, I don't like her at all. I once again don't relate to her character at all. But I already talked about my problems with her character in the last one, so I'm just going to go ahead and move on to my final negative. Now, I'm actually going to separate my final negative into its own category for reasons I will discuss later, so without further ado, let's get into my final negative, which is what we all are really here for. Okay, so here we are at my final negative in this movie, and I'm sure many of you could have guessed what it is. My final negative is the treatment of Luke Skywalker in this movie. If I had to describe it, I would use the term character assassination, and even that doesn't really describe what they did to him. Now, real quick, I want to give you guys a little bit of background that doesn't really have anything to do with this movie, but it will really shine a light on where I personally am coming from. I fell in love with Star Wars when I was around 6 or 7. I literally cannot remember a time that I didn't have a ton of lightsabers laying all around the house growing up. When I would play with these lightsabers, I would always imagine that I was Luke Skywalker. I would oftentimes even throw on a little black glove to really dive deep into the character. Now, Luke is my favorite Star Wars character outside of Darth Vader. As weird as this may sound to some people, I in many ways have always really looked up to Luke. He inspired me. He taught me what a true hero is. A hero isn't someone who is super powerful and unstoppable. A hero is someone who is willing to stand before and look evil right in the eye and refuse to give in. A hero is someone who is willing to give his life in order to protect those who cannot protect themselves. A hero is someone who never gives up despite the odds being stacked against them. He also taught me that it is okay to fail. He failed repeatedly during the original trilogy, but yet he never gave up, and that was always very inspiring to me growing up. I failed at many things in my life, but I always knew no matter what it was, I would make it through. He inspired and taught me all of this and so much more. So needless to say, he means a great deal to me, as I'm sure he does to you. I only say all this so that you understand why I have such disgust and feel so betrayed by what they did in this movie. So let's just break it down. The first time we see him in this movie, he throws Anakin's lightsaber over his shoulder as if it was a piece of garbage. As soon as I saw this, I knew I was not going to like this movie because that one scene alone completely went against Luke's character. You see, this is something that Luke would simply never do. Throughout the original trilogy, it is shown repeatedly that Luke has a lot of love and respect for his father and the man he once was. The most obvious example of this is, I am a Jedi like my father before me. Now, you're going to tell me that Luke would throw away the one thing he had that connected him to his father from the very beginning just like that? I don't think so. It just doesn't go along with the character that we have seen. Now, moving on. We later learn that Luke has gone into exile and cut himself off from the Force due to the Kylo incident. Pretty much what happened is that Luke looked into Kylo's mind and saw that he was turning to the dark side and what he was planning on doing. Luke explains that in the purest form of instinct, he ignited his saber because he thought he could prevent Kylo from killing everyone and everything he loved and built. He then turned his saber off, ashamed of what he had done. But it was too late. Kylo had woken up and he attacked Luke and ended up killing Luke's students and destroying his temple. Now I'm here to argue that Luke would have never ignited his lightsaber in the first place. Darth Vader was, with the exception of the Emperor, probably the most evil person in the galaxy. He had committed unspeakable atrocities, such as the assault on the Jedi Temple and the killing of the younglings. He also spent the better part of the next 20 years hunting down and slaughtering the remaining Jedi. And then enter Luke in A New Hope. Luke had no knowledge of the Force whatsoever until Obi-Wan took him under his wing. In just a very short time, Luke grew extremely close with old Ben, who would become his mentor. Well, at the end of that movie, Vader kills Obi-Wan right in front of Luke. Then, in the second movie, Vader tortures his friends and ends up cutting off Luke's hand. It was also obviously revealed here that Luke was in fact Darth Vader's son. However, in Return of the Jedi, Luke comes face to face with Vader multiple times and refuses to kill him or even fight him. So why was that? Why would Luke not try to eliminate the man who had done everything I just laid out if given the chance? He refused to kill him because beneath all the evil and darkness, Luke could feel a sliver of light within Darth Vader. He spent the better part of this movie attempting to appeal to this light and bring Anakin back out of Vader rather than fighting him. As we all know, he was successful in this. So you're going to tell me that the same man who refused to kill Darth Vader, a man who had actually committed atrocities because he sensed a sliver, just a sliver of light within him, would turn around and give up so easily on Kylo and think even for a second about killing a sleeping and defenseless kid who had not done anything yet? I'm sorry, but no. It doesn't hold up to Luke's character whatsoever. He would have attempted to talk to Kylo about this and try to save him because that's what he has always done. Luke was always more of a talk first, attack second kind of guy. So the idea that Luke would even consider doing this is preposterous and speaks to a lack of understanding of Luke's character. Now, when you suggest this to some people, they will use the defense that he did it out of pure instinct. Well, to those people I say, that would not have been an instinct that Luke would have at all. A lot of times, they will use the scene in Return of the Jedi where Luke goes ballistic on Vader after he threatened Leia to show that when someone threatens those he cares about, he will jump right into attack mode. So him having this instinct holds true to his character. Now, if Luke had killed Vader in this scene, I would 100% agree with you all. However, that isn't what happened. While he was attacking Vader, Luke ended up cutting his hand off. However, when he sees that Vader has a robotic hand just like he does, Luke has a moment of grand realization. He realized that if he continues down this path, he will end up exactly like his father. In this moment, Luke chooses not to give into the dark side and his anger anymore, and instead turns his saber off and throws it away. This is the exact moment, in my opinion, that Luke became a Jedi. Throughout the trilogy, Luke displays tendencies that show he is teetering on the fence between the light and the dark. However, in this moment, he chooses the path of the light completely and finally becomes a true Jedi. Now, a lot of people understand and realize this, I think. However, this moment represents something even more in regards to Luke's core character, and apparently a lot of people have missed this. Throughout the original trilogy, Luke often struggles with being controlled by his emotions and making decisions based on them. For example, he leaves Yoda because he senses Han is in danger, despite Yoda warning him about it. In this moment, however, Luke reels in his anger and finally learns how to control his emotions, thus completing his character arc completely from the first movie. He learns how to make decisions and do things based on his mind instead of his heart. Luke learned this in Return of the Jedi. The sequels take place 30 years after the original trilogy, so Luke would have had an even greater control over his emotions at this time. We saw how good Obi-Wan was at having a hold on his emotions. Luke was far more powerful and also considered the greatest Jedi who has ever existed, not to mention he was the Grand Master of the Jedi Order. This means that he likely would have had an even greater control over his emotions than even old Ben Kenobi. There's simply no way that he would ever have an instinct to immediately kill Kylo in this moment. It just wouldn't happen. To further reinforce this, Luke was a pure Jedi. The Jedi believed in using the Force and their abilities for defense rather than offense. It was also against the Jedi Code to kill a defenseless person. This is just another reason why Luke would have never considered killing Kylo in this moment, as he was sleeping and completely defenseless. This isn't even mentioning that this was Leia's son. He would have never considered doing something like this to him. He loved his sister too much. Now, to play devil's advocate here, let's say what happened in that room happened. Do you really think that Luke would run away and go into exile? No! That is not who Luke is. He would have picked himself up, faced his demons, and come to grips with his failure. Then he would have went to confront Kylo and Snoke head on. There is no way that he would leave and allow innocent people to be killed and put under the thumb of the First Order. He would have done everything in his power to prevent this, even if it meant giving his life so that others could live. That is Luke, the man who never gives up no matter what happens and will always stand between evil and innocent people. There's simply no way he runs away, and to think there is simply ridiculous. Also, Luke's death is not something that this movie earned. It was so anticlimactic and he deserved better. He's arguably the most important and popular hero in film history. You have to give him an epic and emotional send-off, just like Marvel did with Iron Man, but even bigger. The fact that someone thought this was a good way to send him off speaks to the disrespect and lack of appreciation for him and his character. This brings me to my next point, which is the disregard and lack of understanding of what Luke's character represents. You see, in Star Wars, Luke is the literal embodiment of hope. He is a beacon of light that shines through the darkness. He is the one that drives home the idea and lesson that hope will always defeat evil no matter what in the end. He is a symbol, someone to look up to, someone to strive to be like. And what did this movie do? They turned the symbol of hope and the beacon of light into a pathetic old man who failed at everything in his life, and for this, I will never be able to forgive this movie or Disney for what they have done. Now, I have been talking about this for quite a while now, so even though I do have a lot more to say about it, I think you understand pretty well how I feel regarding this, so let's just move on to my final thoughts about this movie. Okay, so here we are at my final thoughts about this movie. Now, some of you may be asking why I decided to split Luke off into his own section. Well, I did this so that I can show you that even without Luke, this movie is not good. I feel as though people think the reason someone like me hates this movie is because of what happens to Luke. So I wanted to hopefully show them that nothing in this movie truly works. There are 4 main storylines in this movie revolving around the 4 main characters. You have the Poe storyline, the Finn storyline, the Rey storyline, and the Kylo storyline. As I showed earlier, at least half of this movie's main storylines make absolutely no sense, are utterly ridiculous, and ultimately do not affect the overarching story whatsoever. They are essentially useless. So even without Luke, we have a movie in which 2 of the main storylines are garbage, and the other 2 are mediocre at best. You throw Luke in the mix, and this becomes one extremely terrible movie. I would give this movie no higher than a 1 out of 10, and I think that it wholeheartedly deserves this rating. You see, subverting expectations doesn't equal a good movie. People do not want to see characters they have loved for decades be completely destroyed and ruined in favor of shock factor. You also don't have to destroy beloved characters in order to prop up the new ones. So, dear Mr. Rian Johnson, you are, to put it honestly, an idiot, and I hope you never touch another Star Wars movie or project for as long as you live. Sincerely, a fan who could have made a better movie than you. So, that is pretty much going to be it for this review of The Last Jedi. I'm sorry if I seem a little harsh at times throughout this, but this is a subject that means a great deal to me. To all those who did like this movie, I want you to know that I am in no way trying to attack you or insult you. This is simply my opinion. If you have a different one, I welcome that and think it's great. So let me know down in the comments below what you thought about this video and the movie as a whole. Do you agree with what I said, or do you think I am completely wrong? Let me know, because I always love hearing what others' opinions are on this. Anyways, that is going to be it for me today. I want to quickly say I'm sorry for this video taking so long. My laptop literally gave out right before I finished editing this video. I had to get a new one and start completely from scratch, so I'm sorry. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. We have The Rise of Skywalker up next, which should be an interesting review. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.